for details. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Burke, Dina Guzder, Nermeen Sheikh, Carla Wills, Tammy Warrenoff, Sam Alcoff, John Hamilton, Robbie Karen, Hani Massoud, Sharina Nadura, Tay-Marie Astudio, and Libby Rainey. Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, our engineers. Special thanks to Becca Staley, Julie Crosby, Hugh Grant, David Frood, Ishmael Darrow, Augusta Godars, and Carl Marxer. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. You can read or listen to or watch our video and audio podcasts at democracynow.org.
Democracy Now! Is underwritten by the French Broad Food Co-op, a grocery store focusing more on people than profit by providing living wages, supporting local farmers, and being community-owned. Citizens have a voice in how the co-op functions. Everyone can shop, and anyone can join.
Ain't it foggy outside? All the planes have been grounded. Ain't the fire.
You're listening to WPVM LP, 103.7, Asheville.
Good morning. You're listening to the Blaine's World Show. We're heard each Wednesday here on the new WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at www.pvmfm.org and watch on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in the Asheville area. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my guest, and she is Shelly Lieberman. Hi, Shelley.
Hello there.
Okay, and you can wave to the people on Facebook World Live, and hopefully we're on Facebook Live. And it's a real pleasure to have you on board, Shelley, today, because I think the listeners will see in just a little bit. But Shelley's retired now with her husband here in Asheville. And prior to coming to Asheville, they spent their lives working, having 2 kids, moving all over the place, New York, Houston, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Asheville. And they've been very active, involved in the theater and singing community, both elsewhere and in Asheville. And also in her spare time, she's also a producer of another show here on WPVM, and that's The World According to Mark.
That's right.
Okay. And the question, Shelley, before we get even talk about some of your Asheville stuff, is that you grew up where, again?
Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
So that's where I was raised and born and bred.
Okay, and so as a little girl in Dayton, Ohio, did you always knew you were going to wind up in Asheville, North Carolina, as a producer of a radio show, also as a musical theater star? Well, let's talk a little bit, even the music theater stuff you were telling me. As a little girl, did you always sing and dance?
Loved to sing and dance. I wasn't very professional at it. My dad actually would sing opera around the house and really inspired us, and also took music lessons, piano lessons, which, oh my gosh, I am so glad I was forced to practice, because now I can read notes and read music, and that has really helped me out with all of my singing that I'm doing now. So just loved it.
Now,
loved to sing.
You said your dad was an opera singer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see him perform?
I did. In Florida, the Van Wezel, Sarasota, he actually sang in La Boheme. And he used to sing in the Catskill Mountains. He was an entertainer. So he did actually sing for people.
Because it's funny you say that. I remember as a kid, my mother loved the opera, and I hated it. She would drag me to, and it's, I guess, a big honor, but she dragged me to the Metropolitan Opera.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember, Shelley, this is before they had the super titles and subtitles, so she'd read me the story beforehand, the
right.
libretto or
Libretto.
something.
Yeah, right.
And I watched this, and I remember I hated it, but now I love it, So it's funny, you were saying as a kid, so you were forced to take piano lessons. You didn't like it as a kid?
I wanted to do it, but, again, it's have you practiced? Have you practiced? I mean, I enjoyed the piano. I did. I got so far with it, and then periodically throughout my career, I would come back to it, take a few more lessons. I love it.
Now, do you remember your first recital?
Oh, yes.
Do you-
Yeah, I can't tell you what I played, but yes, we did have recitals.
Oh, because one of the great things I ask entertainers, and this would have been great to ask you, can you imagine if you can remember your first song, or folks probably didn't videotape it? As a
No,
record
no,
of it?
no, no, no. That was way before videoing.
With cameras or
No.
anything. But wouldn't that be cool if we could dig up your your first song and then have a recital of it? Everybody has their first songs, and now, if you're on stage. But so you grew then from a little kid, you played the piano. Did you continue in high school, and were you in chorus, orchestra, or anything?
I wanted to say one thing. My next door neighbor played the flute, and so we would do duets. So I would be in her recitals too,
Oh,
and
cool.
we played together. Now in high school, I was part of a glee club, so I did some singing in a group, but nothing more than that.
And then beyond that, so then you entered your professional career, and so I guess at some point in time you decided that music wasn't going to be your professional career. Is that correct?
That's right. It was always just a sideline.
Okay. So when you grew up as a kid, you went to school. What did you eventually do?
Well, let's see, it was a combination. I started out in psychology because I'm very fascinated by people. I thought maybe be an experimental psychologist, and I worked with the rats, but I decided to work with bigger rats, so humans. So that's I was very interested in that, and then I decided I would go on to an advanced degree. And I started out with human performance because my dad worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and there were the 7 original astronauts there, and I heard about a career called human factors, which is the man-machine interface. And I became very interested in math and science at that point. So that's, I decided to train for my master's degree in industrial engineering.
Is that what you eventually became?
Yeah, I would say that it's a varied career. It was, they call it now process improvement. I do process improvement. I did project management, data management. All of it is really basically problem solving and streamlining how everyone works and everyone basically become more efficient.
And so that was your professional career for the most part.
Yes.
But one of the things I was impressed with when I first met you is that all of a sudden then you sort of got back into entertaining and performing, that you became you got active in community theater and did a lot of work in that area.
Yeah, and we started in Atlanta. Both my husband and I started becoming interested in theater, and we're in some shows where we did musical reviews, sing and dance, but not very much, not a whole lot, maybe once every couple years. Then when we moved to the Philadelphia area, we started becoming more involved. Our synagogue, they call them the Best Shalom Players. We started becoming part of their musical theater, and every year we would do it. And then my husband in Newtown really became very involved in the Newtown theater. And I was part of 2 plays, 2 musicals in Newtown theater as well.
What were the 2?
Well, I'll talk about them. One was Nuncrackers, which was actually playing here. That was a lot of fun. I was one of the nuns. How about a Jewish nun? That was amusing. And the other one, which really emotionally got me, was Titanic, the musical. And there I played a stewardess, first-class passenger, third-class passenger. We were just full of frolic and fun in the first act. And then in the second act, we were in the lifeboat. And we were sobbing every night. I would jump out of the lifeboat to try to save some of the other people, and they would put me back on the lifeboat, and I would just be crying, sobbing. The audience would be sobbing. It was such an emotional experience.
Unfortunately, I didn't see you in that show, but I saw it with George Hartpence, a mutual friend. I saw him in a version of it too. He was in, I think it was in Edison. I saw him. What a powerful play!
It is.
And it got me thinking, Shelley. It's too bad. I've mentioned to several people in this area. It's never been done in this area. You know, it's such a good play. And wouldn't it go over well, you think, in the Asheville area?
Absolutely, and you don't need a huge stage for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I saw pictures of it on Broadway. It must have been spectacular.
Or they must have had the whole boat or something.
I guess they did. I think something like that. And I think there was one version where they actually did it in a lake.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that was. But yeah, I would love to see that play done again. The music is spectacular.
It is, yeah.
It's grand music, like Les Mis.
And nobody knows it, but it's such a good show. I loved the show.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, really. So keep that in mind that we should somehow bring it to the Asheville area. So then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but at some point in time, you decided to, I guess, leave the Philadelphia area, Bucks County area.
Right.
And you wound up somehow in Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
The question I always ask everybody, and I'll ask you, is how do you wind up in Asheville?
A dart on the map. We tried some different places. We tried Charleston. That was too hot. We tried Florida, and that I don't know, it didn't hit us quite right. And then I said something about, let's go to North Carolina. I've heard a lot about Asheville. Oh, okay, all right. So let's go to Asheville for a weekend. So we got a realtor, show us around, see what we could see, look at the community. And it was the weekend of the Leaf Festival, the one that's downtown Asheville, and it was just spectacular. And we saw a house that we liked. It was on a mountain. And a long time ago, we had been in Cashiers and looked at a house. It was just gorgeous. I said, I want to live on a mountain. Mark said, I want to live on a mountain. So we saw this house. It was on a mountain. And we, one weekend, and we purchased the house and decided to come.
Similar to our story, I think, a little bit, when you did that, had you even sold your house in Philadelphia?
No, we had not. We decided to renovate it and get it ready, and we rented a little bit, our one part of the house. And then we sold our house, and we retired, and we left.
Yeah. So that was, I'm trying to think, that was what, about 2-3 years ago now?
Yeah.
Since you've been in
Nashville.
Yeah,
we've been here 2 years, and we bought the house 3 years ago.
And I think your story is an interesting one, not only because it's your story, but I think it applies to lots of other people. So when you came to Asheville, you, like us, you knew like nobody for the most part. Is that correct?
Knew nobody.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
I mean, that really can be a traumatic experience for you folks. So you wind up in a whole town. You didn't know one person. I think your story is a very good one in the fact that you very quickly got from that point in time to knowing everybody in Asheville. But how do you make that transition? Like, what got you, how did you get involved in Asheville?
I don't know. We took our time, or I was thinking of taking my time. My husband jumped right in. He got involved in the community that we live in very, very quickly. And then it was you that got my husband involved. Mark came home and he said, I'm going to be on a radio show. I went, really? Blaine Greenfield is going to put me on a show. This is like really exciting. Talk about legal matters. And he was so excited. And then lo and behold, I hear, the manager of the station, Davine Dial, is going to put me as a host. And would you like to be the producer, by the way, of this show? And that's how we got really involved and then started meeting many, many people. Also got involved in OLLI, which is the Osher Lifetime Learning Center. And Mark began to teach there. And so we got involved. I started taking classes there. And we did get involved very, very quickly on that. And then, of course, then we started getting involved in the theater here and then started singing in the Asheville Symphony chorus. And so from there, it just grew and grew and grew.
I remember a first discussion with Mark. He was so worried, that he didn't know anybody and what was he going to do, and he missed Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And then I said within a month, that was already forgotten, that going, and both of you, I think it's just incredible how active you've gotten from knowing nobody to being in so many different things almost simultaneously.
Right.
You know, talk a little bit about the show you mentioned, Mark's show, The World According to Mark, and you're the producer. What does that entail?
Well, this is interesting because, as you see here, the soundboard, the technology board right here,
Right.
I had to learn how to use that and work that as Mark was doing his interviewing. Also, in the room that's next to us is a production room where I learned how to do the software for recording people so that we could put on a show later and use the recording. So the technology is fascinating. Loved it. So that's what I do as a producer. Then I also post on the web, post on Facebook, and do a lot of the same things that you do to announce people.
Now, had you ever done that before?
No.
So this is a whole new thing.
Whole new thing.
Yeah. And one of the fun things we have Shelley on today is that not only is she my guest this first half hour, but in a little bit we're going to flip things around and she's going to be interviewing me.
Yay!
So we're going to make you a radio personality too, which is kind of cool. But I like the fact too, Shelley, that you're not afraid, it seems like, to jump into too many different things. You like trying different things?
Yes, no, that's an exciting thing. When you're an adolescent, you try all different kinds of things, and some things go by the wayside, and some things go, hey, I have a propensity to do that, and an aptitude for this. And so that's what I'm trying to do now, and it's like being an adolescent all over again. I tried theater, and I've been in a few plays. I'm going to be doing Robin Hood with Mark this summer. Yes.
Oh, very
yes.
cool.
I'm going to be in that. We're in Murder Mystery in Hendersonville. I got to be the murderess. Yes. And I was the least suspected person to be it. So that was incredible fun. And let's see, I was in Guys and Dolls. I was a hotbox chick. So that involved a little stripping. That was kind of fun.
So that was typecast, right? Or this is
No, not typecast. No, I don't know, man. A retired person being a hotbox chick. Well, but I tried that, and that I'd love to do more of theater and acting. I really, really enjoy that. And singing came up.
We'll talk about singing in a second, but part of the problem, it seems to me, is that you have so many different things going, and it's almost like they're going simultaneously. I mean, right now you're doing, it seems like, about 17 different things, and we'll talk about some of the things. But since you mentioned it, let's talk a little bit about the singing. So I was very impressed. You've been here all of a couple of months, and Mark told me you were going to be at Flat Rock Playhouse. You were in
Right.
You were in a review there.
I've been in 2 reviews, and Mark and I were in the Christmas review, and then I was in a Broadway review.
And that's pretty exciting, when you think about it, the main theater in North Carolina, the State Theater, to be in a production there. That was very exciting.
And it was so much fun. Everyone was so supportive there, and it just was thrilling. I mean, Flat Rock, to be on the stage of Flat Rock, it was just awesome.
And you'd never even probably been to the theater, hadn't even seen the show, but all of a sudden you're on the main stage.
Well, I'd seen the theater when we were much, much younger. We lived in Atlanta. We came for Flat Rock to go shows. So I never thought I would be on that stage.
Now, I'm curious, when you're in the choral stuff, do you also have to memorize that stuff?
Sometimes. Okay, so the Asheville Symphony, we do not. Those are really interesting pieces. We did Leonard Bernstein, and we always have the score in front of us. And we did. We're doing. Let's see. Right now we did Mozart Requiem, and now we're doing Handel's Messiah. So that's our last of the season. So we've been doing a lot of and that has scores. Now, Flat Rock, we had to memorize.
Yeah, is that tough for you?
Yeah, it's a challenge. But, again, at Flat Rock, it's in a choral group. You have other people who are singing your part, too. So it's not that bad.
Because I'm constantly amazed by performers, especially when you're in Guys and Dolls, that not only you have to remember parts, but there was also choreography involved, too.
Oh, right.
And
sing and
acting,
dance, right.
Acting, too, you know. And I really give performers a lot of credit, and I guess you've been through it, that they do all this, and it's It's a lot of work. But you can pick up lines pretty well.
Yeah, I can do it. I have to repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. It's work, but yes, we can do it.
Do you work your lines with Mark?
Yes, but I especially do it for Mark because, yeah. Mine, I put it on a little recorder so that any place, any time, I can hear the line before mine and I can practice my lines. So-
Excuse me. I wonder, in terms of having a spouse in theater with you as
Mm-hmm.
well, describe that process. I mean, do you enjoy performing together?
Oh, that is really fun. And I have a line that I have to give because it is too much fun. We did Shrek together, and Mark played Farquaad, the villain, and I played Pinocchio, which was my favorite character of all times. And I was the leader of the fairy tale creatures. So we are rebelling against Farquaad. And I have a scene with Farquaad who is on his knees, right? And I'm going, freak, eh? Well, I'm not the freak. You are. And it was hilarious because I got to do that to him. And yeah, I love playing opposite of him. I think that's just too much fun.
So and it's really, I guess, nice in a way. So you're also going to rehearsals together.
Yes.
I mean, I guess both good and bad. You spend a lot of time together, it seems.
Yeah, I love to go to rehearsals, and I look over at him in the symphony, and he's like looking at me, and he's rolling his eyes, so it's fun. Yes.
And I can see Mark doing that.
Yeah.
Whatever. So you're now, let's fast forward a little bit because this is really exciting stuff, that in addition to being all these different things, the symphony and different choral groups, you tell me off the air, too, you're also looking to some other work, too, either in choral groups or barbershop quartets.
Yes.
You're looking to get in that field as well?
I might. That one's harder, believe it or not, than the symphony singing. I find those, I chose a part for a woman's quartet, or it's not quartet, it's actually a woman's group, where it's a challenge. And yes, those have to be memorized. So it's hard, yes.
The problem is, I guess you also need a pretty big calendar to keep a schedule of all this stuff, it's really a juggling act between not only the radio show, but also stuff you're in, auditioning, rehearsals. That keeps you pretty busy, I imagine.
Oh, it's a schedule all the time. Get a little downtime. I did want to mention one more thing that I tried. What a challenge this one is. My friend Ellen Pappas and I are writing a musical. Actually, we wrote the musical already. It's called Roar, a Musical, and it's the alternative story in The Wizard of Oz about the Cowardly Lion and how he found his roar. And it has all types of themes in it, diversity, it has basically environment. I won't give away what this lion is about, but it's really accepting who you are, no matter what your parents say you must be, to find yourself. And it's a musical. It's got quite a few songs in it, and it's going to be delightful. It's a little like Shrek. The children can come see it. It's certainly GP, but there's references to adults too, so they should enjoy it as well. So hopefully we're going to get that on the road. We're going to have a table reading by July, and hopefully, we can get it this year, maybe early next year.
How'd you come up with the idea for that?
Well, my husband always wanted to play the Cowardly Lion.
And I could see him in that, too.
Yes. So the three of us were sitting there, me, Ellen, and Mark. And Ellen and I looked at each other and we went, aha, we need to write a play about this. And Mark could be the Cowardly Lion. And so it grew from there into a regular play. So we're thinking about it now. Have you read the script yet?
No, I haven't read it yet. But
Yeah.
describe for the listeners, very exciting thing to actually be doing this. Describe the process, because a lot of folks don't know what it entails. So you had the idea, but no songs. No, you had a possible person, maybe the lead character, and Mark, almost like who would seem perfect for that role. Mm-hmm. And so where'd you go from there?
Well, we framed it out. We kind of an annotated outline and described basically the flow and framed out what happens in Act 1, Scene 1. basically wrote all those out, sketched it, and then every week we would meet and we would divide up who was going to write what. Ellen wrote all the music, and there were a couple of the songs where I gave myself an assignment of writing some of the words to some of the songs. So we both really collaborated extremely well. Every week we come back, change it, and then continue, and we just had that thing written in about 2 to 3 months, very quickly.
About how many songs are in it?
I think it's about 5 or 6 now. I think she just wrote another song. So it's got a lot of songs in it. Some are upbeat, some are very sweet, and very exciting.
And so that's just to be putting this on in your spare time, you know. I love it that this is going to be something else you're going to be working on. And very exciting to have your first show. Can
Yeah,
you
you
imagine?
coming to our reading?
Exactly. Well, do you have a set date yet for it?
Not a date yet,
Yeah.
but it's sometime in July.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's going to be a lot of fun. And to actually see something come to fruition. You know,
Yes.
that this is the other side. You've been in a lot of shows or seen a lot of shows, but now actually put it on. How many people are going to be in the show?
Well, right now we're thinking around 15 people.
Big
A lot,
cast.
some kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
the kids are going to play the young lions. As the cowardly lion grows up, we have other lions. So, you know, kids always bring in people, families. I think it's neat to have that.
Okay, good. In the back of your creative mind here, so you kind of, it seems like you're always thinking of something. So you're working on that. Do you have any other projects like that you have in mind, or you finishing this play? Do you have your second play?
I have an idea for one in my mind, but I'll hold off on that one. I'll see. Let's see how this one goes. But I'm already, it's incubating at this moment.
How about a woman who moves to Asheville and becomes a...
Interesting that you say that. Yes, it's going to be a romantic comedy.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Do you have a preference in terms of, even as a performer, you mentioned Titanic as an example, you mentioned Guys and Dolls, certainly two different kinds of shows. Do you have a preference as to what you like being in?
Musical theater. I like being in, doing ensemble work, small parts, like singing. I like choreography. You know, you mentioned that is it difficult to do the choreography and singing? It actually is easier because the dance steps sometimes lead you to the music, the words, and then the words kind of go with the dancing. And so when you put them all together, it actually becomes easier to remember everything.
Because I always wonder about that again, I think I told you off the air, this thing called Business Sings Broadway, and this is just a couple of days we put it together, and at the end, they did the choreography, and all the guys were running into each other. You know, it's one day. I mean, really tough, though, you know, because it was hard enough for me to try to remember the music, you know. And I had to remember, Jerry Crouch, the director, is big on terms of making a big, you know, making it real, making it big, and then all of a sudden to have one day on a choreography, that was tough.
Yes, it's hard at first. You have to understand. Then, because then you start learning the choreography, and then you forget the words. But once you get it together, it really helps. Each thing helps each other.
And I always wondered about that. At least with music, you can hear it played previously. You can listen to cast albums, whatever. With the choreography, you don't have that. You know, unless it's been taped before, you saw some other production. You just have to, I guess, develop it from scratch.
Yes. Now, sometimes the choreography is based on a prior performance. Sometimes the choreographer does something totally from scratch. I remember Fiddler on the Roof, the choreography when I went to see it on Broadway, the revival. It was totally different from the first one. So, yeah, I mean, it's up to the choreographer as to what to do.
Now, in Roar, will you also be the choreographer?
There'll be a little bit of movement. I don't think there's going to be any extensive dancing in it. But who knows? We'll see.
So you're now, I use the term loosely, retired, you know. I use it very loosely. I call it, sometimes, Shelley, you may have heard me say, rewired. You know,
I like that.
You switch from being retired, and that, I think, certainly describes you. That do you have any challenges in retirement?
Well, I think it's the adolescent theme that I was saying about. What are you good at? Where should I go? What should I do? It's like a smorgasbord to try. And sometimes when something is difficult, should I just train more? Should I keep trying? Or should I say, okay, maybe I should bag this and move on to something else? And I find that to be my biggest challenge, is to try to find out what I'm good at. And if not, what can I do to make myself better at it, or do something different?
And to your credit, at least what I've seen, there haven't been too many things you bagged. It's almost everything you seem to have tried, including being a guest on a radio show, you've kind of excelled in.
Thank you.
But I mean, that's really to your credit that, you're doing all these different things for the first time, and you're not afraid of doing them. You're just jumping in, and I guess both good and bad, you kind of seem to like most of them, that you've gotten involved in.
Everything that I've tried so far, I've absolutely loved. It doesn't mean I'm going to become a professional at it, but I've loved everything that I've tried to do.
When you wake up in the morning, do you think to yourself, what are you going to do? Do you ever have a problem that you have nothing to do?
No. That is never a problem. No. I expect that I want downtime, and sometimes I'll say, I want to drive up the mountain. I want to go on the Blue Ridge Parkway. I just want downtime. And you have to really schedule that kind of thing.
Because it would drive me crazy. When my daughter was little, she'd say she was bored. I don't know about you as a little kid, but in my life, I've never been bored. I've always been able to find stuff to do, and have something to do. And that's sort of your situation?
Yeah, there's always something to do, especially Asheville, which is what we noticed, and that was what attracted us to here.
Let me put you on the spot in terms of advising other people coming to
Sure.
Asheville or who are going to retire. What would you recommend in terms of starting? Do you recommend, like you were going to try to do, just do nothing for the first year or something, just see? Or do you recommend jumping right in?
I think it depends on the person. I think, there's some people that we know that just like to go to a new area and just experiment and attend and get a feel for the place before they jump in. And sometimes they don't even want to jump in. They just really enjoy the culture and the beauty of Asheville, and not really do any structured activities. Some, like me and Mark, we really wanted to jump in and get involved as quickly as possible. I think I got a quick story to tell you. There were boxes in my living room, and I found out that I could help sing in the Asheville Community Theater for their first play with the producers.
Yeah. Right.
And he said, "Come on over." So there were boxes still in my living room, and I was over there.
Yeah, remember that?
So I jumped in right away.
Exactly. So you were at ACT as well. Shelley, if anybody wants to get in touch with you talk a little bit about your career in retirement, talk a little bit about your theater stuff, learn more about Roar, the best bet is to do what?
Probably just email me.
Okay, and your email address is?
Lieberjazz, Lieberjazz @AOL.com.
I always wondered about that name. Where'd you come up with Lieberjazz?
Lieberman, and we had a dog named Jazz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Great. Remember the dog.
Yeah, that's an easier one than my other one, which is my business one is Focus Solutions. And I don't even know if I could spell that. FCSDSOLUTIONS.com.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Shelly Lieberman,
Thank
for being my
you.
guest this first half hour
Why,
on the BLAINESWORLD
thank you.
show. I should also mention a couple of things before we get into the second half of the show. But the underwriter support for the show on WPVM is made possible by Blaine's World, a blog that contains information about Asheville's theater scene, reviews, tidbits of information that you'll find useful information, and some jokes that hopefully not too risque. If you'd like to be added to the free mailing list for this missive, just send an email to bginbc@aol.com and put subscription in the subject line. In addition, what we typically do is mention some upcoming things happening in the Asheville area, and one is a free concert this Friday night, April 19th, 7:30 p.m. at the Attic Salt Theater. And it's a really exciting show called Letters from Home, Reviving Patriotism. Features two of my friends, Aaron Dirth and Dan Beckman, and there'll also be a guest appearance by a local actor a lot of people know, Heather Nicole Bronson. And the best bet to find out information about that or to get tickets is just send an email to wpvmfm@aol.com. That's wpvmfm@aol.com. The show will be Friday night at the Attic Soul Theater in Asheville at the Mill at Riverside. And we'd love to have you. Just send a email and tell us how many tickets you want. In addition, there's a play I'm going to try to see this weekend called Play On. It's a comedy, a play within a play. A community theater is producing a murder mystery with an inexperienced playwright. That'll be at Brevard Community Theater in Brevard, and it'll run through April 29th. And for information about that, you go to the BrevardLittleTheater.org. Shelley, we're now going to have to do something we've never done before. We're going to have to switch seats because Shelley's now going to be the guest interviewer, I guess, on the BLAINESWORLD show, and she's going to interview somebody by the name of Blaine Greenfield. And so, Shelley, let's try to play musical chairs here.
Okay.
And I'll leave the headset here, and we'll talk through this. And this will be a first, but this is going to be Shelley's debut as a radio show host. And so, Shelley, I'll let you have the honors. And I'll go over here. And I don't think we lost too much in the translation. And now I got to do something which is hard for me. I have to shut up and let Shelley take over as the producer and as the host of the BLAINESWORLD program for the second half. And I'll let you take from there, kid.
Okay, but you can't shut up because, see, you're the interviewee and you're supposed to be doing all the talking, not me, okay? Well, first I want to introduce Blaine Greenfield. I think all of you know him. He's the host of Blaine's World. And I just wanted to mention that he was named the #2 WNC radio personality by Mountain Express and was named #1 WNC blogger by Mountain Express. And your blog site is absolutely wonderful. I've read it. He takes pictures, he attends events, and he has jokes, and he writes opinions, and it is a fantastic blog.
Well, thank you.
So, and you've already talked about how to get there. So, would you tell us a little more about yourself? How you came into doing this? I think the listeners would really love to know your background.
Sure, Shelley. Well, thanks for having me as a guest on this BLAINESWORLD show. This is kind of fun. And I should mention that I've been doing a radio show here at WPVM for about 2 years called BLAINESWORLD Show. And before that, I had done 2 other shows, one in the Bucks County area for about 5 years. I also did a radio show in New Jersey for about 5 years. And it's just kind of a fun thing I fell into. I like meeting different people, making contacts. And I did that in conjunction with also teaching at Bucks County Community College. I was a marketing professor at the college for a lot of years. And I also worked for the court system as a mediator. And then I got to Asheville about 10 years ago. And much like you guys, I just kind of jumped right in. I got active in Alley. I got active in the small business community and said, hey, it's just kind of a neat place to hang out and do a lot of different things. And Asheville, certainly, you have the opportunity to do that.
So what do you like doing mostly in Asheville?
What
attracted you?
Well, what attracted me, funny story, ours is not completely dissimilar to yours, but Cynthia, my beautiful bride, knew we wanted to kind of move from New Jersey area, and so she looked up spiritual, New Age, and holistic, and that's the stuff she's into, and Asheville, of course, becomes #1, and I was saying to myself, do I want to be in this like hippie kingdom? You know, what am I going to do? Almost like Mark's concern. And I said, well, we'll give it a shot. Came here originally for a weekend, enjoyed it. Came here we were going to be here for 2 weeks. And our second day here, we bought a home. You know, and hadn't sold our home. And all of a sudden, like you, we knew nobody, but very easy place to meet people, get involved in. Got involved in Ollie, got involved in some other things. And within a short period of time, I was like busier. Cynthia says I'm busier than when I was working full time. I had more to do here than I had when I worked full time.
So you don't miss your last home. You like it here.
Well, again, you know, we talked about this off the air. Don't let anybody hear this because Cynthia always gets upset when I said, well, we really like it here and like it better than New Jersey, but we do, you know, and I don't like people knowing about that, but it's just so much to do, Shelley, and so many different things. And like you, I love theater, got involved in that a little bit, and you name it, I can find something to do.
Great. All right. Well, I know that there is this one topic that is your pet topic, so we're going to go right to that. And this thing is called the Platinum Rule. So we've always heard about this thing called the Golden Rule: treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. Why did you basically transition from the Golden Rule to the Platinum Rule? Could you describe what seems to be wrong, you think, with the Golden Rule?
Sure. I'm trying to figure out when I first started seeing this. I hadn't thought much about it. We grew up as kids, Golden Rule, and, parents tell us the Golden Rule. And I kind of, I guess, applied it and still keep it in the back of my mind. But I read a book maybe about 20 years ago by a guy named Tony Alessandra, and it was called The Platinum Rule. And it was kind of a good book. Had a lot of business examples. Wasn't really applying it to my life. I just kind of put it on the side and said, well, that's kind of interesting. Until, I guess, maybe 10 years ago, maybe less, I saw something with my daughter. I love my daughter, but probably like your kids, my daughter at times is a pain in my butt. And the biggest problem I would have, Shelley, with my daughter is that she wouldn't return my calls. I call her. I don't know if you guys have it. But anyway, she wouldn't return my calls. She wouldn't return my emails, whatever the case is. But I found out that if I text her, she would return my text within 2 minutes, if not sooner. If she wasn't working, I'd text her now, and she'd get back to me. And I finally, it came to me, it hit me, especially with that example, that why should I communicate with my daughter the way I want to communicate if she wants to communicate a different way? And so the whole thing, I sort of put it together with that example. I tell it to all my clients when I do volunteer consulting for SCORE, I do work for Mountain Biz Work, I do work for AB Tech as well, is I said, isn't that a great way to communicate with people? And all you have to do is just ask them, just ask them, how do you want me to reach you? And whatever they tell you is the answer. And so it just all of a sudden hit me that that's kind of a good way to go, that you treat people as opposed to how you want to be treated. More importantly, and I try to do it in my life, is treat them how they want to be treated.
I had a question that I wanted to ask that's not on your list, but how do you know how somebody wants to be treated? How do you detect that they want to be recognized, or they want it quiet, or they want to be, how they want to be rewarded?
Great question.
You tell me.
Yeah, great question.
Tell
and
us.
all you do there are two ways to do it, but one of them is just ask. In other words, so for example, whenever I meet somebody, I'll oftentimes say, hey, Shelley, how do you want me to communicate with you? Do you want me to email? Are you an email person? I hate using the phone now, and I don't know about you at home. We don't even answer the phone.
Right.
So what a waste to call me, because I'm not going to answer your call. But if you tell me you're a text, and I used to hate texting, but now you can talk into it, and I've gotten used to it, so I now text people. So there are two answers to your question. One is just ask them, and just say, hey, how do you want to be treated? When you go out for dinner or you have people at your house, what do you eat? What don't you eat? What do you like? Is that nicer than trying to guess? The other thing I do, Shelley, and I know you and Mark are very good at this as well, I tend to be pretty observant, or try to be pretty observant. So if I see you look at something, or if I see you're eating something, or if you're doing something, I might ask you questions about that, but I'll put it in the back of my mind and say, hey, Shelley likes doing this, so why don't we do that with her? Why don't we, work around that activity? And so a guy by the name of Harvey Mackay wrote a great book years ago I read called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. Great title.
Right.
Great title. But the one thing I remember from that, Shelley, is that he talks about his rule of 66. And the rule of 66 says you should know 66 things about a person. You don't know them all at one time, but you find them out as you get to know each person. Each time you want to learn something new about them. So, for example, I learned about Mark recently that I didn't know he was a bike rider. It's kind of, you posted some great pictures of him on Facebook. And so in the back of my mind that I know he likes biking. I hadn't realized that. And so I kind of think that's kind of neat. And so maybe if I find an article or something about biking, I might share it with Mark. But I just
Nice.
noticed he likes biking. I know you guys are into theater, obviously, and stuff like that. Mark, for exciting, just got appointed to the the board of the Hendersonville Community Theater. And so if I find anything about community theater or management of community theater or becoming a board member of community theater, I just know that about Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And so to answer your question, the two things I do, I ask and I observe.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know that's what you're interested in, I'll work around that.
That's beautiful, and that takes active listening, and you watch what people, I think, how they look, and as far as in addition to what they say. I know that in the business world we had these tests that we took, and there was I think there were like drivers, analyticals, and expressives, and amiables, and you basically adjust yourself to how they're going to respond to you. And it really, really does work.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. We were talking off the air, and not to goof on our mutual friend Mark, but, you'll see when somebody rolls their eyes, that's kind of a signal.
Yes.
That when they're rolling their eyes, maybe they're not interested in that topic, or they don't want to talk about it or go there. And you kind of, see that, as you said, the classification of people, and you work around that.
Yes, right. Or, they're confused. You never know. So it's like really to be observant. Let me ask some more questions about this. So you talked about how you first heard of it. When did you first start using it in practice?
Well, it's funny because, again, I read the book, 20 years ago, and I just kind of put it in the back of my mind, even in terms of working with clients and working with teaching. I didn't think much about it until that example I think I mentioned to you with my daughter, and all of a sudden I started thinking that, hey, maybe this is a better way to work with people, make a better way with clients. So remember, I started mentioning it in my seminars. I'm doing, I should mention to the listeners, I'll be doing a seminar for Asheville SCORE on the 27th. Is that a Saturday? I'm trying to think. I think that's a Saturday.
That probably is, yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, I'm doing a seminar on Asheville SCORE on marketing, and one of the things we will be talking about is this platinum rule. And so every time I would work with a client, I'd say, that's what drives your business. That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter what you think. It matters what your clients think, And so I'd work with clients, Shelley, and I'd show them that they would come up, they'd ask my opinion about an ad. Was this a good or bad ad? And I'd say, well, it doesn't matter what I say. The only thing you care about are your clients. Ask your clients. And they'll give you much better feedback than I will if an ad is good or bad. And they've spent money with you, especially customers. Mm-hmm. And so it just almost maybe in the last certainly 10 years, if not around that time, just everybody I work with from a business standpoint, I'd say, hey, let's think about what it is that your clients want, and let's drive our business around that. Then you have a great idea. You can have all the great ideas you want, but ask people who are going to buy from you to use your services, and they just give it to them. And it's just over and over. I started using business examples. All my clients I work with. So almost every part of my life, I use it. I use it with my wife. I use it with my daughter. Just keep asking and think about what it is that they want and try to give it to them if you can.
You mentioned that your wife also uses it, the platinum rule. How does she use it?
Well, I don't know if she uses it as much as I do, but that's a funny story I tell, Shelley, involving Cynthia. And what it is that Cynthia loves Buddhas. She collects Buddhas. I think we have like 37 of these little fat guys in our house. And she's at a yoga studio several years ago, and she sees a Buddha. She comes home, Blaine, should I buy this Buddha? I said, Cynthia, we have 37 Buddhas. You don't need a 38th. Leave me alone. But you know where the story's going, that for that Valentine's Day, I went to the yoga studio where she'd seen the Buddha. I bought it, killed my back bringing it home, snuck it into her meditation room, and we now have 38 Buddhas. And we have a name for the Buddha. We give it, somehow we call the Buddha. And as I tell you the story, Shelley, you're laughing, but it's to me, it's like the stupidest gift in the world. Why would anybody want a big fat Buddha in their house? But again, the rule is it doesn't matter what I want. It matters
It's
what the other
she
person.
wants.
We have a belief. I don't know about you guys. We have a belief. For example, we're not big into flowers. For example, and we kill flowers. You know, we don't do a very good job in flowers. So when we celebrate a Valentine's Day or we celebrate some other occasion, we'd much rather go out for a meal and both enjoy it, and we both enjoy that, and that's how we celebrate, rather than doing something we think the person might like. So I've asked somebody, do you like flowers? And, you know, they're okay, but why should I buy her flowers if she doesn't like flowers? But she likes going out to eat. She doesn't like cooking. I don't like cooking either. So that's how we celebrate. Again, just asking the person, you know, and don't assume that you want a gift, but ask them what they want and then give it to them.
Yeah, and you'll find out pretty soon whether that really works.
Are
Or,
you-
hey, you might alter your path a little bit.
Well, or a big pet, like, for example, do you like flowers?
Do I like flowers? Yes,
Do you like it?
I enjoy
Like
enjoy
getting
them. I do.
Mark, if you're listening, hint, hint, you know, you just heard from Shelley. Might make a mental note of that, but that's a nice thing to give Shelley from time to time.
Actually, what we did is Mark loves them as much as I do.
Okay.
So we were at the flower show. I mean, we came right at the end of this flower show that was at the Arboretum, and it was an orchid show, and they were packing up all their orchids. And we were really fortunate because somebody was just packing it up and they weren't going to even take it back to their greenhouse. And they gave us both this gorgeous orchid, that art. It was just the most beautiful thing. We were both of us struggling to keep the thing alive. I mean, so far so good. You know, we think that maybe I won't say we mastered it, but it hasn't died yet.
Well,
So-
but that's our problem in a nutshell, Shelley. We don't do well with flowers. It's the only thing we do well with. We have a rubber plant, you know, so we can do a rubber plant, you know. But flowers can't keep them alive, you know. So, but you learn that, you know, you learn that both like something, that's great. But if only one likes it, you deal accordingly.
Right. Well, both of us do. We both share that. And by the way, we both love going out to dinner. I mean, that was like my favorite thing around here. Wonderful food in Asheville.
Okay, yeah.
So let's see. I'm going to ask you some other questions.
Well, by the way,
but yeah, go ahead.
Just hold on that one.
Yeah.
Kind of an example. And I'll mention our friends Brian and Carol Byro,
Mm-hmm.
very good friends of ours. And so we tell the story that you were mentioning dinner. They invited us to dinner one night, and they know I'm not a big fan of tacos, and they were serving tacos. So everybody got tacos, but they got me a pizza, and just for me, I was happy camper, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you do it, Shelley, but I remember my mother used to do it. Whenever I would come home to visit or come for a visit, she'd always ask me what would I like, you know.
Yes.
And isn't that a nice thing to do, rather than make the assumption or your specialty, give them what they like? You know?
I think, yeah, my mom did that too.
Did she really? Oh,
Yes.
Cool.
It was always standing rib roast.
What?
So that I liked.
But she would ask you though.
She would ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did. Now, one of the things that you mentioned is that you said your mother didn't always follow the platinum rule. Did you want to talk about that?
Well, I guess
When did you first realize that?
I don't know. My mother didn't always follow it, but when I was a kid, for example, just the opposite. I remember my mother loved chicken a la king. Okay, and she loved chicken a la king, and she loved mushrooms, and I grew an active distaste for mushrooms at this point in time, and just the other day I went to a place, one of my favorite places in the Asheville area called Ziggy's, and I love Ziggy's, but I guess the person didn't ask or forgot to ask, and they put mushrooms on it and ruined the sandwich for me. So she was very nice. She remade it, but the point is, my mother, as a kid, as a kid, parents do what they have to do, or they think they do. But my mother, I guess, shifted over the years and realized that it's a lot nicer if you give your kids, if you can, what they want and try to work around their schedule. I think they'll also be more receptive to coming visit, rather than having to, follow what the parents want.
Yeah, I have a funny story to tell about that. When we grew up with my two sisters, my two wonderful sisters, we would have this awful stuff called bone soup. Are you familiar with that? Basically, you take marrow bones and you make this barley soup, and
Right.
it was just awful. So we really rebelled against it, and finally, as we grew older, my mother asked, "What would you like, for dinner?" And we came back one time and we said, "We want bone soup."
Oh, did you really?
Yes, it had a latent effect that we like bone soup.
And did she make it?
She did.
Now the question is, have you ever made it for your kids?
No, I did not introduce them to bone soup.
Or Mark?
No.
Has
no.
he ever had it?
Mark loves it. Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Mark would like it. Yeah, there you go. Maybe, hey, Mark, should I make some bone soup?
Okay,
Let's
well,
try it.
But see, that's a great example. That would be kind of a good surprise for him, even though he's probably listening. But if he wasn't listening, wouldn't that be kind of cool that just one day to
I'll
surprise
make
him?
bone
Yeah.
soup. Yes.
Think about that.
I will
That's
do that.
Great example.
So, okay, in gift giving, you were talking about the platinum rule and how you should be giving gifts. Would you
Well,
like to elaborate on that?
I guess similar kind of thing. For example, my mother was very hard to give gifts to. She oftentimes wouldn't be pleased with whatever the gift was, and she was a tough one to give gifts for because she had very specific tastes. And she was very she was a decorator. She was a very artistic person. I always remember it was hard to give gifts for. With other people, again, I find it easier. Oftentimes I'll ask them, I don't know about you, Shelley, but I don't love surprises, for the most part.
That's important
Yeah,
to know whether
to find
somebody
out-
likes surprises or not.
Because some people love them and some people don't. The problem I find with surprises is that if the person doesn't like it or the surprise, you're at kind of a loss. So I'll typically ask what people like, Where, as an example, even for listeners, they might want to think about this. If you're trying to give a gift to somebody who has almost everything, and you can't give them a gift, make a donation to a charity of their choice or something they're active in, So rather than buy them something they don't need, So for example, I'm going to be having a upcoming, dare I say, 70th birthday, and so we're mentioning I don't want any gifts. I have enough gifts. Don't give me a gift. But mentioning to folks, if you'd like to do something, feel free to make a donation to the Attic Salt Theater Company, because that's something I like, I support, and I think it's, it's doing good for the community. But to get me a gift is a waste. I don't want anything, and there's nothing you give me. My sister-in-law, just the opposite. We're having hopefully she's not listening, but we're having a surprise party for her 70th. And she loves gifts, so we're not telling people not to bring gifts. Bring gifts if you want, So again, you find out the person, what their style is, and then work around it accordingly.
So I want to know, is a card all right? Because I love cards. That's my thing.
And I'll tell you a spin on that. Yeah, sure, if you want to send a card. Cynthia and I do something. We send cards to each other on each month, marking the first date we met. We met on the 13th, so each month we celebrate our, quote, anniversary. But one of the things we're starting to do now is we love recycling cards, So if we give a card, we'll save it, and then we'll cross it out and give it next year, and a couple of years later.
Do you remember them?
Well, if you cross it out carefully and then you write over it, saves money that way because I'm not big on spending, $5, $10 on a card. So I love recycling it. Here's another spin for you and Mark, Shelley. Something else you guys could do is in terms of exchange cards, go to Ingalls, in front of the cards, choose a nice card, and look at each other and read it. You can even put it on, you can even take a YouTube clip of it, and that's how you can exchange the card.
Oh, that's funny.
But to answer your question, you can send me a card, but it doesn't, it's nice. But
Not
it
a big
doesn't
deal for
thrill
you.
me. Yet, you want to make an impression, just another example, platinum rule, you want to get somebody's attention, send them a card for their birthday. Email is cool, but send them a snail mail. Because
Right.
then people don't get snail mail anymore. So if you want to stand out, that every day if you get 5 pieces of mail a day, it's a lot. If you get one personal email, it's a lot. I gave Mark the spin on that. He's having trouble reaching a potential guest.
Right.
I won't mention the potential guest, but he said email, call the person and
No,
said,
use
Mark,
mail.
snail mail,
Yeah.
and you'll get a response. You know,
Got it.
98% they're going to open it. So again, just a technique you work around how people respond. They tend to respond to snail mail.
Well, I did want to. We only have a couple more minutes left, but I wanted to tell you what I really admire is I love looking at all the pictures where you are with your thumbs up. That's like a that's a signal that Blaine was there, and I really enjoy your blog site. I really enjoy reading all your jokes, and I thoroughly enjoyed coming to the radio show to do this for you. But I do want to ask you a very quick question. I do have 1 minute, right?
Okay.
And how did you get involved in being a gadfly? Basically going to all these different places, just very, very briefly, and then we'll sign off.
Well, again, I guess it's back to what we're kind of talking about, doing things you enjoy. And I believe in that. You know, in life you should do things you enjoy. And so I found out that what I enjoy, I tend to do often. What I don't enjoy, I tend not to do. And so I found out I love theater. I love restaurants, you know, combining the two. And I love almost what we try to do with the Blaine's World show, what you try to do with the World According to Mark, talk about the good things that are happening in the area. And so if I can help other people and promote what they're doing and recognize and thank them for their efforts, I just really enjoy doing that.
That's
You know, it's
wonderful.
we got into this habit of thumbs up, and this kind of thing we do. So with that in mind, I'll throw it back to you, Ms. Shelley.
Okay, well, I want to thank you. Do you have music at the end?
We do. I think you might be a little bit early, but you
Oh,
can
okay. All right.
mention
But
it. I think, again, we're looking at the clock here. We have how much time left?
15 seconds.
Oh, 15 seconds. I was looking at
Go
one.
ahead and do it.
Put the music.
Yeah, this is my soundboard. Anyway, I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for letting me be on this show. And I want to thank Blaine and Blaine's World for making this all possible. And you've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so, so much.
Thanks, Shelley.
Carolina. 103.7 on your dial and globally at WPVMFM.org.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. France says it'll invite architects the world over to suggest new designs for a spire for Notre Dame. French President Emmanuel Macron's pledged to rebuild the cathedral within 5 years in the wake of the fire that severely damaged much of the building in Paris. Investigators are still trying to determine what caused the blaze, but say they don't believe it was started intentionally. FSN correspondent Oliver Whitfield-Mirchich in Paris says rebuilding the cathedral in 5 years will be difficult and expensive.
Working hours are restricted for workers here. It does take longer for things to be built in France, but the French president certainly believes that it is possible, and that will only really be possible with a huge amount of finance coming from